Forever is the strangest thing. It's shorter than you think. No think.
The Holy Trinity, Bermuda, Alaskan, and Bridgewater triangles. Some say even notable deaths. The significance of 3 is undeniable. You are to bear witness to yet another event. We're invited to join your hosts, Krista, Aaron, and Brandy, as they guide you down the rabbit holes of the paranormal and unexplained, striving for answers of this world and beyond. Welcome to Blondes, Booze, and the Woo.
Welcome to the Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. I am filling in for one of the blondes. I am a natural blonde, so I fit in right here. We're going to be talking with Ryan Paul Tremblay tonight on Monsters. It's going to be a great, great show. But I'm not filling in for everybody. I'm filling in for Krista. I still got Brandy riding side saddle. How you doing, Brandy?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Jason, Krista.
Yeah, the role of Krista will be played by Jason McLean this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, well, you're blonde. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they're like, hey, you're the only other natural blonde that we got, so why don't you hop on? So
Right, exactly.
happy to be here. Wait, is this the first? Is this the first time I've co-hosted a show or the Blondes and the Booze, or a Blondes and Booze with you? I think this is right.
I think it is. Yes. Well, no, wait a minute. We were together on Texas Front Porch one night.
Right. Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we've done Texas Front Porch, but I think this is the first time y'all have interviewed me on this show,
Yes.
but I don't think I've ever been on this side of the show.
Now you're a blonde. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do have more fun, don't we?
We do.
Speaking of fun, what kind of fun do we have on this channel?
Well, of course, on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central, it's Texas Front Porch with, of course, Tex and myself. On Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, it's Van Buren Variety with Bob Van Buren. At 8 p.m. Central, it's Bigfoot Michigan Rob with Beyond BMR. On Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, it's Jason McLean Questions Everything. On Thursday.
For one more week.
We haven't even said anything about that. That was a... Well, we'll talk about that in a minute.
We'll talk about that.
On Thursday at 12 p.m. Central, it's Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and his co-host Krista. Thursday night, of course, at 8 p.m. Central, it's Blondes and Booze. On Friday, I'm sorry, which is today. I'm getting very confused because you got me all flustered here.
I'm sorry. I get you all flustered. I'm sorry.
8 p.m. on Friday, of course, it's Blondes, Booze, and the Woo. And on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central, it's Tex and Danielle Diva, and they'll drop a new episode of Infamous Minds.
Excellent.
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that my rugged sexiness would throw you off so badly.
It did. I was just like, I just lost my whole train of thought there. I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah. I told my wife this morning, I was like, oh, yeah, I've got a show. I'm going to do the Blondes and the Booze this evening. And she looked at me, she goes, I'm sorry, what's going on?
Did you tell her I'm talking with Brandy? I'm going to be with Brandy.
Yeah, it's with Brandy. She's like, that's not helping. So
I'm sure a lot of people have problems when they say, well, I'm going on the Blonde show.
Yeah.
They're like, what kind of show is that?
Yeah, exactly. Blondes and what's happening? What's happening here, honey? Yeah, it's fine. Anyway. moving on. Yes, we've got 1 week left for Jason McLean Questions Everything being on this channel as a live show. We're not going anywhere. Again, me and Donnie, we're still one big happy Texas Front Porch family, but Jason McLean Questions Everything is going in a slightly different direction with some things. And so go hop over there. We're going to have fun. Y'all are going to be, we'll be harassing you and bring you on as well. So, but then after that, after this coming week, there's a whole new show coming, and we're gonna have to talk. We'll tell you all about that later.
Yes, later. Big surprise.
So you got to be here this coming Wednesday with me and Donnie to hear
Yes,
about
gotta be there for the last show.
Yep, got to be there for the last show. Now, speaking of shows, not of the digital variety, y'all have a show coming up, don't you?
Well, we have an event coming up. It is a ghost hunt. It is at Malvern Manor in Malvern, Iowa. It's on July 8th. We do have Tex coming to visit. So, if you've never met him, you've got to. I've had so much fun being around him lately. It's been nonstop laughs. But of course, we have Dr. Rebecca Foster coming. We have Richard Estep coming. We have Terry Mosby. And of course, Josh Hurd, who owns Malvern Manor, will be available and gonna hunt with us. But in this group, we have a psychic medium, we have an author, we have CE5, we have ghost people, we have cryptid people. I mean, anything that you need to talk about, want to talk about, you'll be able to talk about it all night long. We will not hold you captive. You'll be able to walk around freely with anybody you want to. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
You won't hold anyone captive, huh?
Yeah.
No duct tape.
I might hold somebody else captive, but that's a different story. But you can get your tickets on Eventbrite and just type in Malvern Manor, and it should be the first one to pop up.
Excellent. Sounds like a lot of fun. And if y'all haven't met Tex, you haven't met Brandy and Krista, go. Why would you not go to that?
Right, exactly. And we're going to try to do a live, but I'm sure we're going to do some really cool stuff because Malvern Manor is not the only thing we're doing that weekend. So just stay tuned for that. We'll let you know.
Sounds like fun. Well, you know what else sounds like fun? Bringing Ryan Paul Tremblay on so we can discuss the monsters of the world. How you doing, Ryan?
I am doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm here with Brandy and you. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this, does it?
Oh, shucks.
I didn't have to work today, so I've been like lazy all day. I didn't get nothing done. Nothing.
That's how you do
I've been watching podcasts and, just lazing around, watching documentaries. I love those days, but I know tomorrow I'm going to have to get up and do something.
Yeah, same here. I've been lazy all day. It's time to not be lazy anymore.
Yep. So, Ryan, before we started, we were, backstage, we were talking back and forth and, what kind of monsters and things to talk about. And your specialty, of course, is, Wendigo, skinwalkers, stuff like that. So why don't we start there and let's see where the spirit takes us, right?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of interesting questions to be asked about that. So, let's, I think most people are aware of these things, but I think also, as we see, pop culture and a lot of shows, they kind of combine things. A lot of ideas get populated in movies and shows, and so it's kind of hard to delineate one from the other. Break down, what is the Wendigo? What is a skinwalker? What are the differences? And we'll, as far as the actual lore about them, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, Wendigo, easiest way to put this is the Wendigo is an entity. It's a spirit. And what it does is it possesses a person, a man or a woman, when they break certain cultural taboos. Now, the most popular taboo is cannibalism. Yeah. But that's not the only way. In the Algonquin, the Cree, Ojibwe culture, greed can actually bring on the Wendigo. So if there's somebody that's super greedy, he's in danger of becoming a Wendigo. Sloth can be a reason someone becomes a Wendigo. Or they can even have nightmares about the Wendigo. So if they have nightmares, it's dream walking. It's a dream walker. It's a spirit. So these dreams can actually bring on possession of the Wendigo. Now, a skinwalker, depending on which tribe you're looking at, the one that I specialize in is the Yinaralushi, the Navajo version of the skinwalker. What they are is they are a shaman, or a witch, as most people call it, that dedicate themselves to a very, very dark form of the Navajo religion. Yeah. And they break a lot of their cultural taboos as well. When they decide to become a Yinaralushi, they typically have to kill a family member. And that shows their devotion to this black forbidden art. So the two are so worlds apart. You know, you got the Wendigo, which is Algonquin, Korean Ojibwe, and Yinalushi are the Navajo. You know, and they're nothing alike. And I always found it really upsetting that all these different channels just lumped them all together as one entity. And I think that's really showing a great disrespect to the lore and the belief of the indigenous people. Yeah. So it became my mission to really start putting that accurate information out there so people really knew what it was and they could show that proper homage and respect to the peoples that believed in it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's actually something we've Don and I have talked about on our show a lot, which is ideas taken from other cultures and essentially repackaged.
Yeah.
Right? And essentially it's like that's the tulpa is the easy one, right? Everyone likes to talk about tulpas, and it's like, and they're like, well, it's from Tibetan, mysticism. It's like, whoa. What you're calling a tulpa and what a tulpa actually is are two completely different things. They're not the same thing. Yeah, there's sort of a strain of thought where it's like, but you took this idea and you created your own line of thought about it, right? So yeah, that's something that happens a lot, is people use names or titles or phrases or concepts, and they point to other cultures and say, see, they thought the same thing. It's like, whoa, but you've turned this into something else entirely. This is not what they thought this was. Right.
And the Wendigo is a perfect example of that. You know, when you look at all the depictions that you see, you always see the stag-headed or deer-headed thing with big horns, and it kind of has like a monstrous body. That's not what the Wendigo looked like. Like, this is a perfect example of what pop culture has done to the Wendigo. Okay. Yeah. This is what a lot of people will say the Wendigo looks like. All right. And this is something I actually made. So, but really what the Wendigo looks like is the Wendigo could look like Brandy or even you, Jason. It's a human that takes on this demonic entity and it becomes very emaciated. And that person will start chewing their own lips from their endless hunger. And they'll even start chewing their fingertips. So it looks like a normal man or a woman. You know, it looks nothing like that stag-headed being that people like to popularize so much. It's nothing like that. And when we do that, when we show that, we're really showing that we're not paying attention to the original lore. We're actually disrespecting their beliefs. It's part of their religious belief. It's not just a fairy tale around campfires. This is something that they actually believe so much that even saying the name Wendigo or Wetigo is something they refuse to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, so in a lot of ways, by the way, there was a question. Do Wendigos drive Winnebagos? What you're saying is they could drive a Winnebago if they wanted, because if the person had a Winnebago, that Wendigo is driving that Winnebago.
Yes.
But essentially, one of the big clarifications that you're making here is this isn't someone who's turned into a thing. This is a spirit that is inhabiting a person, driving them crazy. And what you're describing sounds very familiar to stuff that I've encountered with people who are demon possessed, even to a point, some aspects of ghoul, tradition in, say, the Middle East and certain parts of Central, more Eastern Europe. So this, again, which is not, like you said, how they're depicted at all, how any of this is depicted in popular media or on other shows. In many, this really just sounds like a continuation of, honestly, demonic possession, which occurs in virtually every culture.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think, if every culture speaks of it, it's something that we have to pay attention to. It's like Bigfoot. Every culture has their form of Bigfoot, right? And that's something that we can't just ignore and be like, oh, well, it's just a fairy tale. Now, if these demonic entities are spoken of in every culture, that's something we have to make note of as well.
Yeah. No, precisely. Real quick, there's a interesting point of clarification that I think people need resolved. Werewolf is asking, or points out that my beard looks red. My beard is red. My hair, when I had it, is blonde.
So you're a blonde ginger.
Yeah, I'm a blonde. Yeah, I'm one of the blonde gingers. It's a real thing. We are.
What do they call that? What's the technical name?
I just saw him a couple weeks ago, and yes, it is true. His beard is red. His hair is blonde.
Is that a blonder or what is that?
Well, no, we're just blonde gingers. We're just. I'm just not a true ginger. That's all.
Oh, okay, all right.
The thing is, I freckle. I used to freckle a lot more than I do now, but I freckle all 9 yards. I just the hair is blonde.
Oh
It used to
goodness.
be very red. It used to be a much redder than it is now. It's actually kind of calmed down. It is what it is. So Titan asks if the original lore included the Wendigo actually killing a loved one to achieve that, the transformation or possession.
No, see, that's a good question, Titan. No, that's more in line with the Yi Nararushi. The Wendigo, what happens is the spirit will possess them, and there's nothing required for that spirit to take over. It's just because they broke that taboo. It was an invitation for that spirit. So that spirit takes hold and it starts physically transforming the person. They don't have to kill a loved one. But I mean, once they become that cannibalistic spirit, anybody's fair game. Loved one, hated enemy, friend down the street, anybody's on the menu.
Yeah, gotcha. That's a great, because you're right. That is a great point, because it sounds like one of the other aspects to the skinwalker, or divisions between skinwalker versus Wendigo, is a skinwalker is someone who is looking for that power.
Yes,
it's literally pact with the devil versus you just crossed a line and you've opened yourself up to this thing possessing you.
Mm-hmm. Like the Wendigo is more I guess you would say, accidental becoming. Like the person doesn't really realize what they're doing until they break that taboo or they're having the nightmares. And once they have that, they already realize, oh my gosh, it's too late for me. And they can go to their elders, and sometimes their elders have cures for the Wendigo transformation. And it's funny because one of the simplest ways they have of stopping the Wendigo transformation is hot beef tallow, beef fat. So they believe that if you feed it to someone who's gone Wendigo, it thaws the ice around the heart that the Wendigo is causing, and it stops the transformation.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
That is, yeah. Do you think that in our society today, and greed being one of the major things that a lot of people are going through, that we're going to see an uptick in this kind of happenings?
Yeah, definitely. With the way things are going today, absolutely. I'd be surprised if we didn't see an uptick in that.
Well,
I'd be kind of going, wow, the Wendigo's not paying attention, is it?
Right.
Well, but hold on. Okay, you say that, but Brandy, hold on. We were just talking about this again before the show, before you came on. Brandy was talking about because I am not a true crime guy. I'm just not, right? Brandy, however, is.
Oh,
yes.
And you were talking about how you've been watching a lot of these documentaries. Like, how do people do these things to each other, right? These true crime, these truly sick people,
the heinous people.
Yes. And it's this particular show on Discovery Plus they're talking about Florida, and that this stuff is usually only written in books, but these people are actually doing these things. And I'm asking myself, how do they dream these things up and actually do them? This is just unbelievable what's happening out there.
I think we're better off not knowing. I think if we actually knew how people came to these ideas, we'd be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But what if it is this? What if it is the Wendigo? See, that's what I'm saying. We're saying, oh, they must, the Wendigo must be, with all this greed, all these other cultural taboos that are being broken all the time. If we're being encouraged to break traditional norms of every culture at this point, well, then the Wendigo might be slacking. What if it's not? Again, we said this.
That's a terrifying thought.
The Wendigo seems to be just the Algonquin equivalent of, again, demon possession, which again, it's just another form or expression of this demon possession, which is everywhere in every major culture. What if he ain't slacking? What if he's got way more business than he can handle? And that's why we're getting more and more sick people doing these truly sick things. Could be.
Well, maybe the Wendigo's out there with his Palm Pilot going, okay, I got to visit this guy today, this guy tomorrow, this guy this weekend. It's possible.
Or maybe this has always been a problem, and everybody would just kind of sweep it under the rug and try to hide these stories. But now they're just coming to light because there's so many that they just can't hide it anymore.
Another possibility. Yeah. I mean, people will tell you there's never been a case of the Wendigo, but that's not true. That's not true at all. In 1878, Swift Runner, that is the most well-known Wendigo case. He killed his own family. He ate his family. And when they tried to convict him of it, he told everybody, including the people of his tribe and even his elders and shaman, I am the Wendigo. And they believed it so much that when they executed this guy, they hid his body. Nobody
Oh,
knows
wow.
to this day where Swift Runner's body is. There's rumors that it was at the fort which he was executed. There's rumors that it was quartered up and divided amongst the state. Nobody knows.
Wow.
Wow.
You were talking, mentioning this idea. It occurs to me that you go back to the truly early versions of werewolf lore, right?
Mhm.
Particularly in Europe. This is the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, why did you kill these people? Because I was a werewolf, right? For them,
Yes.
the werewolf was more, again, very similar to this, where it was a spirit that came on you. You didn't physically transform like we see in movies. It was a
Mhm.
spirit that came on you that made you go and kill people. There's a serial killer in France, I believe, in like the 1700s, who claimed that he had a belt
Yeah.
that turned him into a werewolf, and that's why he couldn't stop doing these terrible, heinous crimes.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up. You beat me to the punch.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're forgiven.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to the idea that this seems to be a cultural universal in a lot of ways. This idea that people you do something and you step off, and there's an edge that if you step off, something is hunting for you in the spirit world.
Mhm.
It's looking for people that it can possess to inflict its will on the world, and its will is to do terrible, terrible things.
Yeah, that's a common fear for everybody because I think we all know that, there's things out there that are hunting us. We're not the apex predators in real life. We might be in some degrees, we might be on the top of the proverbial food chain, but there's also something out there looking for our souls. I mean, we can't deny that.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Now, in talking about possession, demonic possession, they say that it can even change your facial structure in what you look like. So, it's like, wow, this is all kind of tying in together.
Yeah. I think everything's connected. I really feel that every kind of folklore, every kind of myth, even bedtime stories, they're all connected to some kind of reality that apply today. Everything is connected. Even though we don't want to see it, the threads are all there tying everything together.
Real quick, we got a couple of great questions here. Vixen asks, is there any timeline when Dene women started practicing Navajo witchcraft? According to this is more about the Skinwalker. Let's save this one when we get to the Skinwalker.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Actually, both these questions are about Skinwalkers. We'll come back to them.
Okay, no problem.
Real quick though, we have options for what I am. For Brian Colstree says a binger. And Crystal J has pointed out calico.
Oh, like a cat.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go. I think that works because I got gray in here too.
Oh yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
That works. However, Radio Vault has pointed out that beef tallow is like tacos because it fixes everything. 100% true.
Not wrong at all.
Apparently, werewolf is protected from being a Wendigo because he's full of beef fat.
Oh, dude, you guys are gonna kill me with these comments.
Actually, the Nona Boss Continuum asks, is it true that there were werewolf trials in Europe? Yes.
Yep. There were also skinwalker trials. That's something a lot of people don't talk about, but we can cover that when we get into the Naradushi.
Well, let's go ahead and you know what? Let's jump over that.
Okay.
Since we've sort of set up what the Wendigo is and the distinction. So let's get into this Skinwalker thing. We've had werewolf trials, and you're saying there's Skinwalker trials. What were those about, and how did they sort through people?
Okay, so when the settlers first came to the States, they did hear the stories of the Naradushi. And at first they were dismissing it, but when they started taking over the property of the tribes, the different areas, a lot of strange events started taking place. And of course, the tribes were warning them it's the Naradushi. So what their answer to this was basically to round up every Navajo that they could and find some reason to say, you're one of those skinwalkers, you're one of those skinwalkers. And they started executing these people. What was happening, though, was a chain of events. The more they executed, the more the strange events took place. Like cattle were dying, horses were dying, kids were getting sick, women were just going fertile. They were going sterile and fertile all at the same time. All this weird stuff was going on. And so the tribe elders were telling them, it's the Naradushi. You have to leave. The longer you stay here, the more things are going to go wrong. And so it got to the point where they just kept executing all these people, but the magical stuff, the dark magical stuff kept happening where they did leave that tribe alone. And to this day, the Navajo tribe will tell you it was a skinwalker that drove them off.
So,
So
the skinwalker, as you were mentioning, is like the dark side, right?
Yeah.
Of Navajo religion. This is someone who has essentially made a pact with the devil, is what we would say.
what's really interesting though, Jason, is they weren't evil to begin with.
Mhm.
Originally, these skinwalkers, the Yinaralushi, they were kind of thought of as protectors of the tribe. So if somebody was hassling the Navajo tribe, somebody would learn how to shapeshift, how to wear these pelts to turn into animals, and they'd go dispatch the enemies. But somewhere along the way, anything that's magical can be corrupted. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything that has immense power also can be corrupted, and that person can be corrupted with that power. So something happened where they switched from being acceptable to being completely feared. They wouldn't even mention the name Yinaralushi. So if you walk up to somebody who's Navajo and you say the word Yinaralushi, be ready for a fight, because they're not going to be happy you mentioned it.
This is a thing we can come back to maybe later on. The idea, everyone, again, one of those things that everyone agrees on, which is you don't say the name of these things, of any of these things, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting that these names are becoming commonplace in popular media, but we'll come back to that thought.
Okay.
So a skinwalker is physically transforming, right? Like they are changing. Unlike a Wendigo, the skinwalker is physically transforming into a creature of some kind.
Yeah, like normally it's coyotes. With the skinwalkers, it's a thing where they wear the pelts of predatory animals, because in the Navajo belief, it's blatant disrespect to not just the animal, but to the great spirit when you wear the pelt of predatory animals. So they kind of give that middle finger to the spiritual beliefs. The Yinaralushi will wear the predatory animals' pelts to show their rebelliousness.
So in a cultural taboo.
Yeah, anything they can do to desecrate the actual belief, the witchery way is what they call it, they're going to do. They're going to go out on that limb and they're going to disrespect it at every turn.
See, I'm seeing a lot. There's another common theme in a lot of, with like a lot of occult, is the mocking of usually the dominant religion. For Europe it's Christianity, but there's plenty of others see the same thing, where there is a blatant rebellion against that authority, which is that's one of those cultural universals of here's the middle finger to the natural order of things.
Yeah, that rebelliousness that us humans have, it gets the worst of us at every single turn, every culture, it happens.
And I was thinking about this, because this is when, people hear the word berserker, they don't really understand the context for the Vikings, but this is very similar to what the Vikings would do. They would wear, for those people who became berserkers, they would wear the pelts of bears and wolves. Because to your point, the skinwalker isn't just a coyote. Most people think coyote or wolf, but it's like, no, it's bears. It's a lot of these other things as well. Speaking of that question, right? Titan asks, have we ever heard of an account of a skinwalker posing as like a doppelganger?
Well, okay.
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, they will mimic the voices of certain people. When they're trying to lure you out, anyone that's close to you, they will use the voices of those people to draw you out to where they want you. And they'll even try to take on the basic shape. Like, they can't morph into that person fully.
Right.
They can make themselves look somewhat similar from a distance, but once you get closer, that spell breaks off. So I wouldn't say doppelganger. I'd say a really crude facsimile.
So they can basically mimic from a distance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I think it's something about the magic spell they use that the closer you get, the less power it has. It's really weird, because it's kind of the opposite of most spells. The further away you are, the stronger it is, but the closer you are with this one, the less powerful it is.
Well, I guess it's sort of like a decoy, right? Like it's like you would never mistake a duck decoy for a real duck,
right?
Up close, but if you were 50 feet away, you'd be like, "Oh, hey, there's a duck over there."
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Real quick,
look twice. It would definitely make me look twice.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you, Titan.
Thank you, Titan. We appreciate
that. Oh,
that.
Titan, you're a boss.
Yeah, Titan says, fascinating subject this evening. Ryan, good to see you. Much love. Blessings.
Yeah, I've known Titan for years, man.
He's a good dude.
He is. He's a great guy.
Let's go ahead and jump onto Vixen Doe's question from earlier, because apparently she was mentioning that when she was working out in the big techs, 2 people were killed for being skinwalkers.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
I know. I haven't heard about anything like that happening recently, but again,
Well, was that like a tribal execution, or were people just accused and just shot down, or what?
so Vixen, we're gonna need a little extra mojo in that one.
We're gonna need a lot more on that one, because
Yeah,
you got
'cause
my
I've-
curiosity
Yeah,
peaked.
you've got my attention. You've got my attention now. Now I want to know.
So
I'm not
her earlier-
surprised. I actually would not be surprised at all, because the Yinararushi belief is just as strong today as it was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
That's something that people think, oh, well, the tribes don't believe in it anymore. That is not true. That's absolutely not true. I mean, that belief is so strong that they still take precautions to make sure those things aren't coming around. We can't ignore that.
Right.
She did say, is there any timeline when the Dene women started practicing Navajo witchcraft? According to Tony Hellman, said in the 80s that a woman practicing Navajo witchcraft was very rare.
Yeah, it was mostly men. I think some of the men back then were just so greedy for power, and women already knew that they were already powerful. They were the life givers. They were the one that took care of the kids. They knew they had power. Back then, guys were kind of desperate to prove themselves. Like, I can be just as powerful as you. And no, you can't. But they tried anyway. But I'm sure there were the rare few the women that did join that certain cult. Yeah, I'm sure of it. I would not say no.
But it would be more of a rarity. And again, going back to that idea of the middle finger to the natural order of things.
Right.
Because again, women are life givers, whereas the skinwalker is the life taker.
Yes. I mean, that'd be a really crude deflection of what they were if a woman were to join. But like I said, I'm sure that a woman has devoted herself to that practice. That promise of power. I think that promise of power would be too much for most people to resist.
Well, and again, that goes back to the idea of the berserker, right? The idea of taking these things, these pelts on to get this power in warfare. Essentially, they were possessing, right? They would be possessed. Some would say the gods, some would say whatever.
Right.
But again, to gain this power to go into battle and do pretty horrific things and endure horrific things. So there does sound like a real connection here with the skinwalkers originally being sort of. It sounds like almost warriors or protectors, and then, but you're saying that essentially they became corrupted.
Yeah.
It sounds like these very cultural, universal themes of playing with these things, and that sounds really interesting.
I have a theory on that. I think I know why that happens is because we're not meant to learn all that stuff. As humans, we're not meant to learn how to shapeshift. We're not meant to make ourselves impervious to harm. It just wasn't in God's will. So when we learn that kind of stuff, it does corrupt us because it's forbidden. Anything forbidden is eventually going to corrupt you and wear away at who you are and what you are. Any morals are going to go right out the window when you have a certain amount of power.
Yeah. You know what? That is something that we see with the. That's a really great point. That I was listening. It was months ago. They were talking about how it seems like the more wealthy and powerful you become, the more likely you are to get into some truly despicable things, right? Just having even just money and sort of like earthly powers, like they start. This is where you start getting into these weird sex cult things, and you hear about like the dude in Europe who literally was, again, no one talks about him anymore, but he was this very wealthy man who ran essentially a farm where he would have people brought in and he'd hunt them for sport and kill them.
Wow.
And it seems like that we get these stories of these very wealthy, people coming out and doing things like, oh, that's not. Are you sure? Because we keep getting really weird images that seem to suggest this stuff's happening.
Yeah.
But to your point, it may just be that once as you acquire power, either the desire for it or once you acquire it, there's that temptation to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yeah. I mean, to stoke that inner geek, it's almost like the dark side of the Force from Star Wars. Like you're trying so hard to be good with the light side, but then you learn what the dark side can do, and you're like, oh, ooh la la, I like this. I can hurt people with just my mind. This is awesome. I learned these new dark arts, and they think it's okay because they're using it in moderation. But then before they know it, they're becoming too reliant on this dark arts, and they're hurting people more and more and more. And they don't realize that once you start hurting people, it just becomes way too easy. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these skinwalkers.
Well, and
Yeah, it's kind of like in any of the 7 deadly sins, should we say, any of those, that it's kind of inviting these things to you.
Yes, absolutely.
real quick, because that's a interesting point. Again, I think it feels like there's maybe even a thread that connects these two, because again, one, right, the Wendigo, you have created an offense, you've broken a taboo that opens you up for this predatory spirit to come on you.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, you're doing it deliberately, and they do different things, yes, but it does feel like there is again, everyone's like, oh well, the skinwalkers, you're changing into this thing. It feels like if there's reality behind all this, and I think we all think that there is, then is it the possibility that the spirit itself is what's driving them to do evil things? Because
Could be.
if to gain that power you have to do terrible things, and the nature of the power itself is to be an affront to the natural order of things, then wouldn't that suggest the spirit itself is, again, predatory in a way?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially with the Wendigo, I mean, the entity itself, it's definitely a predatory spirit. It's always looking for that acceptable vessel. And it knows well enough that if it waits long enough, it's going to find the person it's looking for. Somebody's going to mess up somewhere along the way, and that's when the Wendigo goes, aha, gotcha, and jumps in.
Like maybe it's the difference between
an
ambush predator.
Sorry.
No, please go.
Oh, I was just going to say again with demonic possession. I mean, there's steps they have to go through before they even get to the point of possession, and before that is oppression, which is breaking them down to the point where they start inviting these people in just to make them stop. And it sounds very similar to the point of when they get broke down, and then when they get possessed, then they start doing all these bad things. But as in what Jason was saying, is that the entity is actually making them do these things.
Yes.
And it's just causing more harm before they even get to the possession part.
Right. And I think the most terrifying part of that with the Wendigo is the man or woman who gets possessed. They actually know what's happening to them. Once they're possessed, they will tell people, I'm becoming Wendigo. So they actually know the fate that's going to fall upon them pretty soon.
Wow.
And I think that would be terrifying. Think about it, that if you broke this cultural taboo, one day you suddenly start feeling different, and you just know there's something in your mind and your heart going, I'm Wendigo now. That would just be utterly terrifying for me to know that you're becoming that thing.
Well, yeah, because I couldn't imagine myself going, well, I'm feeling a little down, been crazy lately. I'm becoming demonic. That would be very strange.
Wouldn't it?
Wow.
What would you do in that instance, though? I mean, you'd seek help, sure, but until that help arrives, you're vulnerable. There's nothing you can do.
Well, and imagine trying to tell people, "Hey, I think I'm possessed." What?
Yeah.
What? They're just going to look
nowadays. Nowadays, they think you're crazy, but with the Cree and the Ojibwe and the Algonquins, if you said you were Wendigo, they were like, "Oh my goodness, we got to get rid of this," So it's
break
so
out the tacos.
terrifying.
Yeah. And besides, besides, the Native Americans, who's going to know what Wendigo is? You go see a priest and say, "Hey, I'm Wendigo." They're going to go, "What is that?"
Yeah. They're going to be like, "What's a Wendigo now? Is that related to the where to go?" Or
exactly. I mean, you probably run across a few that would know exactly what you're talking about, but there's many that are clueless on
that's true
on anything like that.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
Can you imagine? Hey, I've got a skinwalker problem.
Yeah.
They're not gonna help you anyway. They're just gonna say, "Well, you have to see a doctor."
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, our culture has rejected the idea of the supernatural by and large. I mean, that's the entire point. Like, I had a friend whose father worked at the sanitarium out in Rusk, and that was one of the things they were talking about was, he's like, look, a lot of these people just are mentally ill, but he said straight up, there were people, he's like, I am convinced were possessed by demons. Like, they would do things, say things, you're like, that's not just someone who's got this connection. That's something there's something much more wrong. Again, police friends have said, yeah, we've talked to people who are absolutely demon possessed. He's like, there's not a doubt in my mind that's what was going on. But I find the difference here, if they are both essentially demons that are possessing someone, one's making the deal, the other one it falls upon. It's like the difference between an ambush predator and then something that baits its prey, where it's like, hey, I'll give you this, right? I'll give you this power. Here's your thing that you want, right? Like an anglerfish. Here's the bright little light. And then once you get close enough, you get that light. It's like shump. The other one is just like a crocodile waiting in the water, just waiting for you to get close enough.
Yeah,
it's just
correct.
waiting.
Correct. And to add to your point, though, about people denying the supernatural, I've never understood that. We live in a supernatural world.
Yes.
You know, if you believe in any kind of religion, Christianity or whatever, there's a lot of supernatural in that. The creation of man and the world and the universe, supernatural. So how can you deny supernatural? How can you say supernatural does not exist? I don't get that. I don't understand that.
Trust me, that's one of those things I ask all the time. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're a Christian, which relies on the idea that there's a supernatural being that created the universe, that supernaturally created the universe, in a book that's supernatural, about supernatural events, and you don't believe in the supernatural?
Right.
Like, there seems to be a disconnect. At which point I will say, okay, well then are you actually a Christian here? Like, is that?
It sounds like a contradiction to me.
And which goes back to maybe there's a broader point here of maybe this is, again, what if Wendigo's spirit is much more active than we realize?
Yeah,
and
it could be.
And a lot of these people are just, we call them crazy, or they're serial killers, or they're whatever.
Right.
And there's just more there's more work for these things to do, and we keep trying to treat it with drugs or a psychiatrist who doesn't think that there's anything supernatural going on to begin with.
Right. Well, that's funny you mentioned that, because Wendigo psychosis, that was something that a lot of psychiatrists said were real. It was a real deal. But in modern day medicine, they're finding little cracks in that armor now, where they're saying maybe it's not really psychosis. Maybe it's something that's really coming into these people's minds. So it's not a psychosis. It's something taking them over.
Well, I'm wondering if somebody who believes they're a Wendigo, are they living a normal lifespan with being a Wendigo, or are they having a shorter lifespan?
It can vary, because some of these people that get possessed, they're known to try to go and harm themselves to get rid of this. Others, when they try to evacuate, they'll try to go live off in exclusion somewhere by themselves. It's said that they can live like over 100 years with a possession of the Wendigo spirit.
So you're saying that if they are possessed by a Wendigo, that they are fully aware and fully functional as themselves with the Wendigo. So it's just kind of like it's half and half.
It's kind of like one of those things where when the Wendigo possesses them, it's in there and they know it's in there. The Wendigo will make them do certain things, but then they still have their own will in a way. But the Wendigo will go ahead and kind of pull back that will when it wants to. Go, oh, no. I want to do this instead. You want to behave. I want to misbehave. And that's when they go out and start killing people and hurting people.
Okay, so it interjects when it wants to, is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's creepy.
I always wondered about that. I'm like, do they live a long lifespan, a short lifespan, normal? I didn't know.
It can vary. I mean, there's a lot of cases where people have become even cursed to become a Wendigo. There's a story of a woman who her baby became a Wendigo through a curse.
Oh, wow.
It's a gruesome story. Nobody knows her name, but what would happen is she gave birth to a baby, so she was in bed rest. And her daughter was cleaning house, and she would call to her mom, tell her, it's time to wake up, time to wake up. The mom wasn't getting out of bed. So about midnight, the daughter went into her room to see if the mom was sick. The mom wasn't moving, and she had the blanket up to her neck. And when the daughter moved the blanket down, the baby was devouring the mom's chest. And the reason why this happened is because the family had slighted a shaman. So the shaman sucked the Wendigo on them. It put the Wendigo curse on them, and it chose the baby.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a very...
I mean, did you get the whole Rosemary's Baby thing and all of that?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
No.
That's intense.
That isn't it? It's like imagine
I
seeing
wrote it
that.
down so I'll remember.
Right? I think the girl was about 12 or 13. So imagine being a child at 12 or 13 and walking in and seeing your younger sibling eating your mom's body. It's like, whoa, what?
That's yeah.
Oh,
Wow, there's some questions there.
Yeah.
Titan points out that he did a tour in Rusk at the Texas facility for the mentally insane as an officer. He points out he was an officer, not a patient.
Sure,
Sure,
Titan, I
Titan.
believe you, brother.
Yeah,
that's how made
absolutely.
me spit out my coffee.
Back to the Skinwalker, Brian Krolsty points out the tribal police take reports very seriously
Yep.
of
Oh, yeah.
Skinwalkers. They carry protection with them like corn pollen.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
serious business on tribal land.
Oh, it's very serious here in Arizona. I mean, the
Mhm.
belief of skinwalkers here in this state, it's astronomical. It is. There's so many people that believe in it, and I think it's a good thing that people actually have this belief, because I do believe that those things are out there and that they can come your way, and you should believe in them.
Now, what is
Um,
exactly the natural form of a skinwalker? I mean, is there a natural form, or is it?
Yeah,
never
yeah,
come
it
one?
would be the man or woman who chose to become one. They would look like
Okay.
you or I, but there is a way they said that you could tell them apart from normal people if you look in their eyes. They have like a mirror like glint to them. So when you look at their eyes, it's like reflecting the light and it's really bright. So they say if you look into the eyes, you can tell if they're a skinwalker or not by that.
Huh.
Okay.
But that's only good for the Skinwalker, or does it affect the?
That's good for the skinwalker. The Wendigo, I think you're going to know that person's a Wendigo by how they're behaving with you, because you're going to look like dinner to them. So they'll probably be chasing you around the house trying to eat you, whereas the skinwalker will just be messing with you mentally.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Interesting. Real quick. You know what? I'm going to save that one for the second part.
Okay.
Titan's actually got a couple. Titan's asking you if you've been going live lately. Says he hasn't gotten any notifications.
No. We've had very busy schedules. I've been doing conferences and Ashley's been doing conferences. So we've kind of been neglecting Monster Radio. I feel bad about it, but you know, when you're trying to build up a career in cryptozoology, you got to kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, you kind of have to juggle.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I mean, I got 2 conferences. I have one tomorrow that I'm giving a virtual lecture at, then I have another one following month, and I'm just like, oh boy. But I'm excited.
Titan's
Yeah.
got a question we've sort of addressed, but I think it's a good one. It's is the Wendigo lore mostly centric to First Nation, or has it permeated other cultures?
It started with the First Nation, but other cultures started taking from it. Like if you look at the Norse mythology, they have that stag-headed god too, which was derived from the Wendigo. And coincidentally, that legend was also interbred with the Wendigo for the appearance. That's where a lot of people get this stag-headed appearance of the Wendigo, is from the Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing, right? Again, going back to this idea that if the Wendigo is a spirit that comes upon you that makes you do these things after you've committed a crime, that's the same. We see the exact same thing with werewolf lore, with early Eastern European werewolf lore. And to your point, there's a lot of crossover on a lot of these ideas.
Yeah.
Skinwalker and Berserkers, they seem almost one for one.
Yeah.
So
And
it's maybe it's
if all these numerous cultures talk about this stuff, then we have to pay note to that. We have to pay mind to it and look into it, because it has to be some kind of reality to it.
Yep. Real quick, since we got a few minutes left before the break, Ryan, has there been any accounts of those who have become Wendigos being set free from being one?
Well, yeah.
Yes, actually, there was a man by the name of Jack Fiddler. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was a shaman for the Algonquin tribe. His mission was to exorcise those who became Wendigos. And while he did set some free, he actually has quite the body count. He murdered 27 people to try to get rid of the Wendigo.
Wow.
Yeah. And his sons actually would carry on this tradition. So they became the Wendigo killers, because they would actually go and try to stop this possession and transformation of those who were afflicted with the Wendigo curse. But there are some people that he was able to free from it. One woman he freed from it by beating her with a belt. The Wendigo fled her body because he was beating her so viciously.
This is really reminiscent of a lot. I mean, there's a lot of accounts of people doing exorcisms. And again, most people think of exorcism as a Christian thing, and it's not. Because every culture has some form of exorcism, but this is really common of hearing people, again, either Christian or otherwise, die under, during an exorcism, which often includes physical and physical abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because I mean traditional Christian exorcism shouldn't involve physical abuse, which is why every time I've seen these things, like, well, they tied him down, they were beating him with him, like, whoa, that's not that at all. But it's like, I have seen that from other traditions as well, but it's like
I've never understood it though, because when you're using physical violence, you're not hurting the spirit inside the person, you're hurting that person's body.
Right.
Exactly.
The spirit, the soul, or whatever it is that's inside that person, they can't feel that. But the human body, they can feel it. So it's like you're hurting that poor person.
Yeah, not the being.
Yeah. The being's probably sitting there going, hey, thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?
I'll find somebody else. Go ahead and do away with this body. I'll find another one.
Well,
it's probably going to break this one. I don't care. There's this person right here.
Well, but demon possession, one of the big red flags is self-harm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even in the Bible, where people who were possessed were physically causing themselves harm.
Yep.
That's one of the things we talked about on Texas Front Porch. Tex came up with the idea of a sudden acute possession, where what if these people who just everything's fine, but then they snap and they go and do something terrible or hurt themselves,
right?
Have simply just become like they were ready. It's like just the right moment, and the demon comes on and is like, I think it's time for you to do something terrible to yourself or to someone else. Like they were vulnerable, again, almost like this Wendigo thing. They were vulnerable, and it pounces at the right time to cause that sort of harm. But so I get to your point. Why physical abuse to drive out a demon has never made sense to me, because but we see them causing self-harm. They wouldn't harm themselves if that got them out of the body.
Correct.
Exactly. Well, we're at 52 minutes almost here.
Yeah, we're almost there. So guys, we're gonna take a quick 5-minute break, and then we're gonna come back and finish up with Ryan. And real quick, you've got what happening on July 8th, Brandy?
Yes, we have a ghost hunt going on with a whole bunch of great people. I want to go over them real quick here in just a second. We have Richard Estep. We have Tex from, of course, Texas Front Porch, Terry Mosby, Josh Hurd, Dr. Rebecca Foster. You can purchase your tickets on Eventbrite. Just type it in Malvern Manor, and it should be the first thing that pops up. July 8th. It's coming up real soon.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right, guys. We'll see y'all in 5.
See you in 5, folks.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
And we're back with Ryan Tremblay, and we were talking about skinwalkers and wendigos, the difference between them. And one of the comments that we had made earlier was there does seem to be this, Ryan had pointed out that most First Nations people won't mention the name skinwalker or wendigo or their native tongues about it for fear, and that seems to be a very universal theme amongst a lot of cultures about not talking about or speaking the names of these entities. Nona Boss points out that she heard an account from someone who mentioned their hunting lease was owned by Mormons, and they would also not speak about these kinds of things, similar to the native people. Like the native people's like, we don't talk about this stuff. Let me ask this question then, because this is absolutely culturally universal. Like the Fae, you don't like. It's tradition not to call them the Fae. You don't say the fairy folk. You say the neighbors or the good neighbors, right? You do everything to sort of stay off their radar. Is it possible then? So let me take this next step further. Our culture has really, over the last 20 years or so, really you can go back 40, but has really started to adopt a lot of these ideas, right? Again, it's been in many ways even atheistic, right? Even most Christian religions up until, for the last century or so, were almost deist, right? In the view of the supernatural. But now that we're sort of embracing it, we're using these words and names everywhere. Every television show and movie seemingly is utilizing these names and this imagery. Are we essentially breaking that? Are we unknowingly breaking a taboo that gives these things access to us? It has called their attention to us.
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. And yeah, I would actually agree that we are, especially with the Yinarayushi, the skinwalkers. They put forth that it's always important to speak with them with reverence, with respect. And if you look at how people treat the skinwalker lore, we're doing the opposite of that. So by disrespecting them and mentioning them so often, we might very well be stirring them up a little bit. And I think we need to tread lightly.
And so this is actually one of those questions then that is it just that we are, I'm trying to think about how to say this.
Okay.
Is it that we're doing it unknowingly, or are there people in the know who in pop culture and everything are doing it very deliberately to cause this to come on us, right?
Oh.
Marquise Williams asked this question on Wednesday show. He goes, why do we have such satanic imagery everywhere in the music world today? Like what we see them actively, it's everywhere. They will even actively perform what are clearly occult rituals as parts of opening, ceremonies and music events. I was talking to Donnie about this actually just before the show. Why do we have this popularization of horns on heroes now, right? Like we're seeing all these characters are like, here's the horns, they're coming out. Like we're popularizing this imagery and names.
That's true.
Is it that we're doing it unknowingly, or are there people who know who are like, no, if we do this, these things will come. They will come. We're attracting them. We're giving them access to it, to us, perhaps even giving them the ability or the power to manifest themselves.
Oh, I'm going to say that people are in the know. I'm going to actually go out on that limb and say, yeah, people know what they're doing. Okay, because you can't look into this stuff and see how dangerous it is and just be like, oh, well, I'm going to just mention it just for the hell of it. No, people do it for a reason. There's always a purpose behind every action. And I think there are people in the know that know exactly what they're doing. I really do.
Yeah, that makes me wonder because I mean, it's always being said or mentioned like it's nonchalant. It's just a form of conversation.
So casual. It's so casual. I mean, like, remember during the 80s, if we brought this stuff up, it was always behind closed doors or close friends that we could talk to about with this stuff, and now it's so commonplace. Like anybody on the street talks about it. So there has to be something behind that. Yeah.
Well, in fact, we actually did a show on this on the 80s Satanic Panic, right? Mm-hmm. We had all these people, saying, hey, this stuff should be shut down. We can't be doing this. And of course, what did the media do? The media painted them all as crazy people.
Right.
Only crazy people were worried that these people were, that we had all these musicians using satanic imagery and occult imagery. Oh, you're just being over the top, right? And sure, the media would show the the crazies.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't necessarily going to because what the media does, right? It's very deliberate. They weren't going to people who were making reasonable arguments.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like maybe it was almost instinctual. People say, hey, we shouldn't have this stuff running around. But they were painted to be crazy, so that to the point now where we have creatures and people who are clearly patterned after demons being heroes in stories and shows. They made Maleficent a good guy in the new remakes, right?
That's
crazy.
That's insane.
They made the villain the good guy. They did the same thing with Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
Two characters patterned after Satan himself, right? Maleficent literally turned herself into a dragon and was slain with with the sword of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Cruella de Vil. I mean, let's be honest. This was meant for kids. It was not. They weren't hiding that she was supposed to be the devil. Right? She's the same age as the other woman in the movie, but she looks like this very Wendigo-like, right? Like we were talking about the Wendigos.
Extremely.
Very Wendigo-like. She wanted to consume. She wanted power, and she was emaciated in just this skeletal creature. Mm-hmm. And in the new movie, she's played by Emma Stone. And there are scenes where they make her where she wears stuff that's clearly demonic in its symbolism. She even addressed the whole idea of the devil. They play that, but they make her the good person.
Yeah,
they
like Hellboy,
the hero of the movie.
Yeah, you got Hellboy also. I mean, the son of Satan, and he's the hero of it all.
Yeah.
It's a very weird time, man. It's a very dark time too.
Yep. No. It's yeah. Okay. So again, I'm actually a Hellboy fan, but I like.
Me too.
I know. What I'm saying is, I like the comics goes way deeper into this stuff than most people. Like this, the movie's very, very toned down, but like that's a theme that they bring up is that he's essentially a Nephilim, right? Mm-hmm. And what I find interesting is he's opposed to these things. They set him up very clearly. It's like he's opposed to these things. But particularly with Disney's doing is they're not setting them up as being opposed to evil, but rather that evil itself is actually good. Mm-hmm. That's where it's like, a lot of people have said, well, hold on, but Hellboy's the good guy. He's opposing the devil. Ghost Rider, he opposes the devil. Diablo, you're killing demons. But it's like, but then Disney at kids is saying, yeah, but maybe it's okay for demons maybe demons are the good guy. Like they're not even trying to put on the facade of something that's out of evil can be made good. It's that no, the evil is just misunderstood.
Yeah. There's a very clear message they're trying to send there, and it's very disturbing.
Yep, that's a really interesting. Yeah, it goes back to the idea of mentioning the name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's like
So,
you don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's blurring the lines between good and evil, most definitely. I mean,
Mhm.
it's how do you decipher what's good and what's not?
Right.
It's like, well, everybody's talking about it. Well, let's see what we can bring to us or conjure up, or
Yeah, it's going to be harder and harder for this generation to actually decipher the difference. You know, if evil is shown to be the good thing and good is shown to be the bad, how are they going to know what's right and wrong? You know, I mean, there's no clear definition anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, literally, this is a biblical theme. You know, woe unto those who call evil good and good evil.
Right.
And every time Israel got out of line, one of the lines that's thrown in is there, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
Right.
It's the idea that there is no clear right or wrong, and that people start embracing evil. It seems like, again, a pretty common theme for humans is to be allured to evil and then start adopting it and saying, yeah, no, it's cool to do evil things.
Yeah. Sadly, correct.
Well, unfortunately, you know, mainstream media is parenting our children these days, and I guess it comes back on the parents. Is the parents need to take control and teach your children, and not let media do that for you.
Now more so.
Yeah, pointing out, Brian Colsty says that in his opinion that it's a form of forced acclimation. Get people.
It could very well be
primed for the reveal, where it's like, oh, sure, there are creatures walking around with horns, but that's okay. They're probably the good guys. They were just just misunderstood them in the past. Which is
a way to dump it all down.
Yeah, I used to think that when the end times came, that the demons were walking around, all that would be that they'd have to be forced to hide behind aliens and have this big masquerade, and it's getting to look more and more like it's going to be more like humanity's end, or childhood's end, where it's like, no, they're not hiding anything. Everyone's like, no, it's okay.
It'd be out in plain sight.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna look just like us. I believe that.
That's the best way to hide. The best way to hide is right out in plain sight.
Yeah,
sadly.
And Jason and I were talking about the Scooby-Doo theory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, yeah, there's monsters, but they're actually people.
Yeah.
So
the worst monsters are human.
They're always people. Yeah. Yep. So and it goes back to this whole possession thing, is because we're allowing them to come in. We're letting them.
Yeah. Some openly invite them, like, I'm a vessel. Here I am. Take me, and that's
exactly. Mm-hmm. What can it do? I mean, shoot, TV's telling me it's okay. All these people are doing it. It must be okay.
Yeah, they're encouraging me, so it must be right.
Yeah,
exactly. It's everywhere, so why not?
Yeah. Would Taylor Swift tell me to do something wrong?
Oh, never.
No one who's paid by massive corporations has ever done anything wrong or would ever tell you to do anything wrong. Always trust what the talking dog says.
Right. And again, especially in the paranormal world and in all these places I go, I get with people from the local historical society. I talk with them. They know more than anybody else in town. But guess what?
Yeah.
They're in their 60s and 70s, and you hardly ever see young people. Again, it's just kind of like you have to embrace these people and bring them in and let them know the truth, that these things are out there and how to avoid it. It's just kind of like you cannot leave this to TV and other people and their views. You have to really teach your children again.
That's how miseducation happens real quick.
Yeah.
I'm sure if this stuff was real, the government would tell us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Oh, sorry. I laughed. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're supposed to. Crystal J points out that there are movies with actual spells and satanic props, and it's all out in the open.
Yep.
Yes.
100%. Again, we talked about this with the most recent Doctor Strange movie, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's like it was always like fantasy sort of magic, and then this last one towards the end, in the last scene or the last sort of ending sequence, I was watching it, and I was in the movie theater, and I could feel the change. Like, something's wrong. This is not normal. This is not just an acting thing, and I'm starting looking around. I'm like, wait, no, this is wrong. Like you could feel it becoming. Say, like I had to, I had to pray, and like once we left, I had to pray and get because I'm like something's following me home. Like this was
you
a
felt
thing.
That vibe.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know that vibe real well. So yeah,
that's a terrible vibe to have, man.
It's like no, this was not just fantasy magic. This was real. Like this was something going on here, and this. But we see this in movies and stuff all the time now. They're like, no, we want to get accurate. Why do you want to have an accurate spell in a movie?
Right.
That's aimed at kids.
Children.
They totally lost the whole purpose of comic book heroes. Like comic book heroes are supposed to be fantasy. We don't need reality brought into them. We don't have to be 100% accurate with real truth. Make them fantasy, make them outlandish, make them over the top. You don't have to do these satanic spells and have satanic props. That's unnecessary.
Well, it's unnecessary if your goal is to entertain. It's necessary if your goal is to open up people for the demonic influence of these creatures, because that's who you actually serve.
I stand corrected, sir.
Well, I'm not correcting. I'm just pointing another perspective. But Brian points out that Disney, even it's on the Hulu, the Hulu because I'm 80 now. It's on the Hulu, but it says they're supporting a show. They're distributing it, like they're part of it. But it says Disney supporting a show where an 18-year-old girl has a one-night stand with Satan and becomes pregnant. And
whoa, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's called Little Devil. Hold on, I can find it. Actually, no, Hulu's not on my phone.
Wow.
But no, the show is about the daughter. It's about the daughter who has the powers of Satan.
Whoa.
That's what it's about.
That's disturbing.
No. What?
Yeah. No, the plot now again, it's an adult animation, right? That's how they sell it.
Oh gosh.
It's about a girl who gets knocked up by Satan when she's 18, and now it's the daughter, and this isn't the only one doing it. There's like another show similar to this, but the daughter has the powers of hell and is using them and is doing things like killing people even in the trailer. Like she's murdering people for fun in the trailer, and it's supposed to be all good in games. But like there's stuff that Disney's produced for children that is straight up. One of them was Star versus the Forces of Evil, and it's about this little girl from another dimension. She's a princess, but she literally wears plastic devil horns, and like her assistant is a flying unicorn head. It's a unicorn's head it's disembodied. It's just the head flying around doing things and talking. And of course, one of the themes across the show was maybe the evil wasn't actually evil, that the dimension she was from supplant, like the monsters we see as evil, they're just trying to get their land back. And that the real evil were these beautiful people who are walking around. And of course, the main human character is just sort of along for the ride, seeing all this. Like,
wow.
And that's not even counting, like, I think it's called the Owl House, where it's straight up. They've got a Baphomet character. They've got it's about a woman. It's about a little girl learning to become an actual witch. Like,
yikes.
This stuff is in Disney shows for kids, where you can argue like Little Devil or whatever is meant for adults, though there's nothing preventing children from watching it, and it is a cartoon. Disney's got stuff aimed for kids where you're like, whoa, this is not, like you said, this isn't stepping over the line. It's pole vaulting it with a rocket pack.
Yep.
Into this line.
Wow.
That's a little concerning. That's a lot concerning.
Yeah. Well, and this is again, how many of these big stars, right? Their music videos are, I mean, it's getting to the point where they're doing, like, they're becoming demons. There's one for I forget the name of the band, but it was a big song, and I caught, someone was talking about the music video. I had to look it up. He essentially becomes Satan.
Whoa.
Lil Nas X, there was this one song that he does that everyone was freaking out about, where he gives Satan a lap dance, rips off his horns, and puts it on him. And you're like, hold on, someone, where did he go? I just saw it. Maggie M10 says, one of Florence and the Machine's music videos has a literal seance and masks and all sorts. She says, I've only listened to the songs mostly, but she stopped watching music videos when MTV stopped. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, we just had the Grammys where some actor, this song called "Unholy" was out, and he literally dresses as Satan, and they perform like a lot of people are like, "What is this about?" Like even normal people who don't give any of this stuff second thoughts are like, this seems over the top. This is weird." But like a year or two ago, they were all literally wearing devil horns like that. They had passed them out. I forget if it was the Grammys or whatever, but I don't watch any of that. I haven't watched any of that stuff in 20 years. But
that's definitely disturbing, man.
Yeah, they were literally wearing plastic devil horns, just like the girl from Star versus the Force of Evil. And it was a part of. It's like, okay, at some point, this is not an accident. This isn't just a trend. This is deliberate. And let's go back to the idea of the Wendigo that you were talking about. It wasn't just that you had to break. It wasn't about just eating people or cannibalizing someone. It's about breaking taboos, you did something. But then you talked about the nightmares, right? Where it seems like maybe you don't always have to necessarily break a taboo per se. You could make yourself vulnerable in other ways and it would find you. You just had to be vulnerable enough.
Yeah, I think that has to do with like the morality, the mindset of that person. I think if that person's corrupt at all, mentally or even emotionally, I mean, it definitely has to do with spirituality. If their faith isn't what it should be, I think the Wendigo in their dreams goes, "Hey, you're susceptible. You'd be a good vessel for me. So open on up and let me in." Yeah.
So do you think that depression or anxiety or any of that could possibly play a role in that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think if the person really just felt like brought down or was constantly scared, I do feel like fear plays a huge role in the possession. I think the stronger the fear is for that individual, then, the more likely they are to get possessed. And I think depression or anxiety could bring on that fear and escalate that fear to astronomical heights where the Wendigo's like, "Hey, I could smell you from a mile away."
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that if someone really liked or was actually in service of these things, again, taking that next step where the Wendigo isn't just a localized event, but rather is a part of an ecosystem that is clearly universal.
Right.
And is an ambush predator. And let's say you served the thing that that either you serve them directly or whatever these things serve, however you want to say it, then you would have a vested interest in making people depressed and anxious and fearful about everything in life.
Absolutely.
And doing things to break taboos. And let's even define let's take it away from like Christian morality or even ethical morality and just say the natural order of reality itself. Right? You would want people to be, again, anxious, depressed, and fearful, and participating in things that broke with the natural order of things, and also perhaps allowed you to invite these things into your life by observing or witnessing or talking about these things by name.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. And I think when you look at the Wendigo lore, there's so much darkness to it that I think the depression and the fear just came naturally, because they would say that like the wind during a winter night, that was a Wendigo calling to you. And so think about how easily it would be to become afraid of this when you're sitting there by a campfire on a winter night and you hear the wind blow and you're told that's the Wendigo. You're going to become afraid.
Yes.
I think that fear just became so adamant and so dominant that certain people just became so afraid of it that they opened themselves up to it and started having nightmares or just walking blindly into doing something like breaking a taboo.
Well, you know what else? Okay. Winter. Right? The Algonquins were further north. What happens in winter? Less sunlight. Less sunlight means less vitamin D, more prone to depression to begin with. So it's going right back to what you're talking about. Depression, fear, and anxiety. And again, it's winter. You can't go out and hunt. The food you have is what you have.
Yeah.
Right? The people who are, if you were going to cannibalize someone, it's because you didn't have food.
Correct.
When were you more likely to not have food? During the winter.
Yep. That's what made the story of Swift Runner so interesting. Was this guy was a fur trader and a hunter, and the path that he had traveled with his family, it wasn't his first time traveling this trail. It was maybe like his 100th time, and he was at this cabin and he claimed that they were all dying of starvation and that the Wendigo made him kill his wife, his mother-in-law, his young son, and then his infant son. And this guy even went on to brag about how he killed them. He could tell the police and the investigators, I killed my son by doing this. I strangled my wife. I bludgeoned my mother-in-law. When I killed my infant son, I broke open his bones and sucked up the marrow. So he was giving such details that these guys were going, oh my God, he really is the Wendigo.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's, ugh.
Yeah. You know, and I hear so much stuff because, of course, I watch all the documentaries and all this stuff. But I even heard like a 911 call where the guy called in. He said, I just shot my wife. I've shot my son. I've set my house on fire.
Whoa.
Yeah. He set it on fire. He says, I have a gun. I'm sitting in my car. I'm going to kill myself. And he said, I'm just letting you know, don't call me back. And then he hung up the phone.
Wow.
It happened here a few years ago. Well, I say a few years ago. It's well over 10 now. I just realized what house I was in at the time. And there was a woman here in North Texas, and she called in. She goes, she cut off the arms, maybe arms and legs, or just the arms of her newborn child.
Oh my!
And then calls in with a butcher knife and calls in 911 and just says this is what happened. And they played the 911 tape. I remember hearing the 911 tape thing. You hear this voice and you're like, that it sounds like a voice of someone just gone. Like there's nothing behind.
There's no morality there anymore. There's no human being there anymore.
Yeah, so again, this is why I don't like true crime. But
yeah.
To Brandy's, again, to that earlier thought, is it possible that maybe the reason we're seeing such an increase, because to Brandy's point, maybe we're just hearing about it more. Well, to a point, yeah, this stuff has always been here, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
However, that being said, it does seem like there's been a dramatic increase.
Yeah.
In it. So it's like it went from being, again, it's like the difference from having like a minor, like, a few bugs in your house to being to a full infestation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it is blowing up. People seem to be finding new and more acceptable ways to do heinous things.
Yeah. One story that's actually never talked about anymore, and it's something that I believe is a modern case of the Wendigo, is the story of Jason Lee, the guy who was on the bus. He was sitting next to a guy, and for no apparent reason, he just killed the man next to him. And when they found Jason Lee, he was eating the stomach, the entrails out of the guy he killed. So what sparked that cannibalism? Why did he kill someone he didn't know, a total stranger? And why did he start cannibalizing him after he killed him? I think that's a modern Wendigo case. I really, really do. And I think that deserves to be looked into a lot more.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I don't.
I know we're getting a lot more comments here.
Well, yeah, no, I just don't like true crime. But no, this is an important conversation. No, it really is, right? I think it was.
I mean, well, if we're talking about Wendigos and possession and today's society, what Ryan just said fits that perfectly.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. And it's interesting, again, you're talking about the wind. Vixen Doe points out that there's a lot of stories of how early pioneers supposedly went crazy just by the constant sound of blowing winds on the prairie.
Yeah. Well, the wind can sound horrifying. If you're ever out late at night and the wind's blowing just the right way, it can sound so frightening. You just kind of stop and go, I am alone out here, right? And you're just looking around like, don't let there be a monster behind me.
Oh,
I've had those nights where I'm out on investigation and the wind sounds weird. I'm just kind of like, there's a monster behind me, isn't there? So
well, maybe the thing is you're not really alone. Maybe that's the point.
Oh, don't say that. I'm never gonna go out at night again.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the skinwalker, right? The skinwalker can't imitate a person perfectly, but it can call out someone's name, right?
Yeah.
Or sound like someone. That's every culture on the friggin' planet says if you hear someone that you know or a family member and they're calling you off of a trail, do not go.
Yep. 100%.
Every culture. Everybody says this. And what's interesting is, again, for the Greeks, and the Romans, it was the fauns, aka the satyrs, who would call you off to kill you. Like that's what they were doing. It's the sirens and of the sea, right? It's like they would call out, they would sing songs
Mm-hmm.
to call you to your doom. Like this seems, I
Yep.
mean, again, these are very universal themes.
Right, and that's why I say you can't ignore that. You know, that's why I keep telling people we have to look into that. All these cultures talk about it, so predominantly we have to look into this and see what's up.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
Swiss Miss wants to say something. I know it.
No, I'm being quiet here. I'm reading Donnie's comment.
Okay, I was actually going to throw that up there because it's this. I do this. He goes. He prefers the opposite of true crime puppy videos. Like if you saw me years ago when I was on Facebook, everything I posted was like cute animals, right? It was all cute. It was cute baby animals. That's what I watched. That's what I show my wife half the time. I was like, look at these cute animal videos, and it's like, look, it's a capybara doing something. It's a capybara with a hat. Because the world sucks, dude. The world sucks. I want cute animal videos. That's what I'm here for. I don't need true crime. I know the world sucks. I've met people.
I agree with you 100%.
It's like people are like, so don't you believe that people are good? You know, people are born good. I'm like, no. Have you not met people?
Mhm.
Like any human at all? We're born terrible. You have to work to be good in this world.
Yeah.
At it. Everyone's like, no, I think people are born good. Then you've never met a person, and you certainly have never met a child.
Right.
Right.
Well, I
Ever.
don't have any puppy videos, but I got little big feet. There you go.
Oh,
There you go.
Does that help?
Mhm. Yep.
Anything to help?
that's amusing.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Hey, there we go.
Is she gonna do the Charlie Chaplin dance with the little feet
Yeah.
by her head?
Okay.
Or...
From
Right.
what was it? Something in June. Benny in June. Yeah,
Yes.
I love that movie.
With the
Sorry,
potatoes?
I had to break it up. You know, because honestly, talking about all of this is very interesting, but you need a break from it.
Yeah.
You do need a because
Once we're done, I'm looking up cute animal videos. When we're done, I'm not kidding.
Well, you know what? If I scared you a little bit, Jason, then I brought the information the right way.
You haven't scared me at all. Like that,
Oh.
That's also probably the worst part is this hasn't scared me at all. All this is doing is just confirming what I've been thinking and the path I've been on for a while.
Right.
So-
It is.
Some of the things we're going to be. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
no. Like I said, I am going to need to watch some cute animal videos. Brian points out that Lucifer convinced 1/3 of the angels of heaven to rebel against God. Let's face it, folks. What chance do the unprotected have?
Good point.
Armor up. And that goes back to why are they doing this? Why are they aiming all this stuff at kids?
Mhm.
I mean, part of the Target thing was that they had shirts. Again,
Well, they can mold the children. I mean, adults,
Yeah.
we're pretty much set in our ways, whereas kids, they're open books, man.
Yeah. And to where, it seems like we used to protect their innocence.
Yeah.
But it's
Not
like
anymore.
they're losing their innocence much earlier now than even when I was a child.
oh yeah,
It's like
Oh,
these kids are coming up with stuff like 8, 9 years old that I'm like, I didn't even realize that. So I was
Oh,
a teenager.
yeah. I was just talking about that with my mother today. I was like, Mom, these kids do stuff that if I did it when I was a kid, you would have beat me down 10 ways to Sunday. And she's like, oh, you're darn right, I would have. You wouldn't be misbehaving like these kids do.
oh yeah,
Right.
oh
It's so
absolutely.
different.
Right.
When I was a kid, there were people who had trouble with the fact that I had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles T-shirt.
Ooh, Ninja Turtles. You're talking about language.
Oh yeah, I'm old school of the Mirage
too.
comics, dude.
Oh, yeah. When they all wore the red bandanas.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's about to get. Yeah, I'll keep it from getting too geeky here. But Titan Point asks, do we suppose that Ryan? Do you suppose the Goatman is a type of Wendigo?
No, I think that's either a pan, a satyr, or that's strongly tied to the occult. Because the Goatman it doesn't fall into the cannibalistic Wendigo, but that thing has some evil all its own. That's one thing that I don't even like looking into too much because it scares me.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to scare me. I mean, I go out and I do active skinwalker research here in Arizona. So for me to go, Goatman, you can kind of keep it to yourself. There's some scary stuff behind that.
Yeah, I got a lot more look. Again, I've looked into Goatman a lot because we have reports around here. I actually know some. Again, one of my claim to fame is doubling the amount of eyewitness accounts of White Rock Goatman. So we've gone from 1 to 2. Yay!
Right.
But yeah, I mean, when you start looking at like some of the Goatman stuff, you're like, whoa, this gets dark real fast. Like
Yeah, it
real
does.
fast. And
Yeah.
again, to your
Especially
point,
like the origin stories. You know, when you
oh yeah,
look into some of the origin stories of the Goatman,
Mhm.
wow, you got to be ready for some macabre, gory, frightening stuff because you dive headfirst when you look into that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness. But for me personally,
Mhm.
it's too dark and too scary for me, man.
Okay, so here we go. Crystal asks, "What's with all the secret societies that wear bull's mask? What is that?" So
Ooh.
that's the thing, right? Goatman. The earliest story we have is the Epic of Gilgamesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
The earliest depictions we have of Enkidu, the sort of co-star of that story,
Yep.
he's depicted as a goat man. I mean, well, he has bull's legs, right?
Right.
It's the same imagery. It's
Yeah.
the same thing. The Shahadim, they were, they're which are what they called the demons in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
They were depicted as goats.
Yeah.
Like this goat human hybrid is everywhere.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
maybe
there's
the
just
reason-
something really frightening about all that. I mean, just the imagery alone, makes you go, oh, you get that cold chill going down your spine when you look at it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
I mean, that's worse than Dogman for some reason. Like, I could easily look into a 10-foot tall werewolf, but a goat man, I'm just like, yeah, no, you can go look into that on your own. I'm going to stay over here. Bye.
Well, it's like you said, there's clear occult connections there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, which just brings us all back to something's going on. Because when it came to Wendigo and Skinwalkers, everyone's like, you don't talk about them. You don't do these things to attract them. And our culture's like, let's talk about them and do everything possible to attract them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so foolish to do. That's why I want to actually bring the actual lore to the table so people can realize, hey, wow, these things are actually dangerous not to be messed with.
Yeah.
I think it's important that some researchers out there start doing that a little bit. Protect your people. That's what you have to do. You have to protect your tribe.
Mhm.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify something, Lil Patty says Ron Perlman only did the first Hellboy.
2.
He did the first 2 Hellboys. He did Hellboy and then Hellboy and the Golden Army.
Yep.
The most recent one was the guy from Stranger Things, David Harbour.
Perlman was the best, by the way.
He was. That's undeniable. Which is terrible because Perlman did the 2 Perlman films are Hellboy as re-envisioned by Guillermo del Toro.
Mm-hmm.
And then Harbour's Hellboy was essentially was very closely connected to Mignola, the comic creator's Hellboy.
Yeah.
But then what happened was Hollywood got a hold of that and just and played it just too hard. They just took it too far. Instead of Hellboy needs to be a series on Netflix. That's what
like
it needs
Spawn.
to be.
Spawn needs to be a series too, because Todd McFarlane did such a great storytelling with that none of the movies or the cartoons ever did it justice.
The Spawn HBO series did a really good job on Spawn though. But yeah, to your point, Hellboy needs to be a cheaply done. It needs to be a low budget Netflix series. That's what it needs to be.
Yes, agreed.
So, on that note, Randy, would you like to tell everyone again about your July 8th conference?
Yes. We have a ghost hunt that's going on, and we have some really cool people that are coming to, just to investigate with us. We have Josh Hurd, which is the owner of Malvern Manor, Dr. Rebecca Foster, Richard Estep. We have Tex, of course, from Texas Front Porch, Terry Mosby. Okay, we got cryptid, psychic mediums. We have ghost people. We have everything that you need all in one night for a lot of fun. You can purchase tickets on Eventbrite. Just type in Malvern Manor. It should be the first thing that comes up under Blondes and Booze. And hope to see you there. We have a limited amount of tickets, so make sure you get yours soon because it's coming up quick.
Very nice.
Very nice. Ryan, before we leave, could you let everyone know where to find you?
Sure. You can find me over on Monster Radio on YouTube. We're just on YouTube for now. We'll be in other places eventually. But you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look up Ryan Paul Tremblay. I'm the Wendigo Dogman guy. Can't mistake me. So hit me up. I love conversation. I love when people want to ask me questions or talk about Godzilla or Frankenstein or werewolves, whatever you want to talk about monster related. Hit me up, and I'm all there for it, man.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been
my
a
pleasure.
great show. You will have to talk again.
Oh, definitely.
I really enjoyed the conversation.
It was fun. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it. And to everyone who's watching, we really appreciate y'all. Like, follow, and subscribe, and share us out. We'll see you next time.
Night, everybody.